Okay, Sharon, over to you.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the North West and West Cambridge Community Forum. Thank you all for making time to attend. My name is Sharon Brown. I'm Assistant Director Delivery in the Greater Cambridge Shared Planning Service, and I will be chairing this meeting. I'm supported by a number of other council officers from the City Council's Community Services team on the panel this evening. We have Julian Adams. Julian, I don't know if you just want to give us a wave. Thank you. Lisa Pollitt. Thank you, Lisa. And Vicky Hayward. Also present at the meeting are some of the Planning Service case officers for the individual developments. We have Charlotte Burton, Guy Wilson and Yola Medeiros in attendance. This is the first virtual community forum meeting for North West and West Cambridge, and in common with those held at Cambridge East and North East Cambridge, this is a place very much for an information swap, updates and a chance to get to know those who are helping to shape the neighbourhoods in this part of Cambridge and South Cambridgeshire. I know we have some people in attendance who've been engaged with the development of the individual sites for a long time, but also that there are a lot of other people who will have little or no knowledge of these individual developments. This meeting, therefore, very much acts as an overview. Future meetings of the forum will be held every 3 to 4 months. It's likely that, COVID permitting, the way in which the meetings are held will differ as we move forwards throughout the rest of the year. This meeting will be made up as a series of short presentations, approximately 15 minutes each, from the key developers. This will include the first time we hear proposals from a new development site at NIAB headquarters on Huntingdon Road. As we go through the presentations, if you have any questions, please type these concisely into the question and answer function at the bottom of your screen. And it's in the middle at the bottom of your screen, and we'll pick these up and relay them to the appropriate person at the end of each presentation, which point we've allowed for 10 minutes of questions. There are a number of presentations this evening, so we will need to keep to the timeline set out on the agenda, and the meeting will end promptly at 7:30. I will give presenters a 5-minute warning to the end of their scheduled presentation time. To note that this is the first of these types of meetings, so we are very much learning too in terms of use of the technology, so please do bear with us. The meeting will be recorded and posted on the North West and West Cambridge Forum webpage. Attendees will not be recorded, but names will be displayed when asking questions. If there are questions for which we need to find the answers after the meeting, they too will be posted on the web page. And if I could just go through a few housekeeping issues before we go into the presentations. If I could ask everyone to keep their buttons on mute at the bottom of the screen when not speaking, so that improves the sound quality for the whole meeting and ensures that we don't get any background disturbance. So please remember to do that when not speaking. You'll find all the main function keys at the bottom of your screen, including the question and answer function. In addition, in the top right-hand corner of your screen is a symbol, there's a view symbol, which if you click on it, allows you to make adjustments to how you view the meeting. I'd now like to go to the first presentation, and that's a Darwin Green update. And I would like to invite Alan Davis and Ray Houghton from BDW Homes to start their presentation and to confirm you have 15 minutes. Thank you.
If you can confirm that you can see that screen.
I can't see anything yet.
Okay.
That's it.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Alan Davis. I'm the planning manager for Barratt Homes, Cambridgeshire. I'm joined with my colleague this evening, Ray Houghton, and between the two of us, we'll give you an update as to the relevant parcels on the Darwin Green development. I'm conscious this is the first update we've given to the forum for over a year, where we've actually been able to present, so there's quite a lot to cover. I'm going to cover the first 10 minutes and then I'm going to pass on to Ray. There's a lot of slides here to go through, so apologies, I'll be going through it at quite a speed. But there's some key things I want to bring up and also some quite good images that I want to share with the forum. So without further ado, I'll begin. So for those of you who know the site quite well, you'll know it's split into phases. Outline plan permission was granted for the site. We've got the earlier phases here that have been built out, so BDW1, the local centre, BDW2 here, 3 here, 4 here, and then the latter phases here are known as BDW 5 and 6, which Ray will go on to at the end of the presentation. So in terms of general updates, the infrastructure update for the site is that the main routes through the development are now complete to base course level. Drainage works complete, strategic services, pipe works installed across the site. The temporary haul road is now complete and construction traffic has come from Piston Road, and the electrical utility compound Piston Road is complete and the site is now supplied with electricity, as has been the case for a while now. General progress, as I say, the site is split into the various parcels. Work on BDW1 and the local centre is progressing well. One of the main buildings on the local centre, the courtyard building, is progressing. The scaffolding has recently been removed on significant areas of the building, exposed to the mixture of brickwork. And then in terms of BDW2, as some of you will be aware, plan permission was refused back in December, and we're currently looking at how best to tackle members' concerns raised. In terms of BDW3, which is this parcel here, fronting on the Central Park, we've commenced initial design work and had discussions with Cambridge City Council about pre-app advice, and we're looking to submit an application for this area, sorry, go back one slide, in June, July this year. In terms of BDW4, this parcel here is a similar situation, but that is to follow BDW3. This section will be discussed by my colleague Ray when I pass over. This is a general update on completions. As you can see, we've legally completed 96 units on BDW1 in the Barratt's brand, 42 on the same parcel in the David Wilson brand, and then on the local centre, we've completed 59 units of a total of 287. So as I say, BDW1, we're making quick progress on it, and of the completions, there's 138 of the 173 completed that were permitted. There's some images just to give you a flavour of what's happening on site, and some illustrations again as to what the house types on BDW1 will look like once complete. This is the local centre, and as I say, the courtyard building, which is at the centre of the local centre, is progressing well. The library, the concrete frame is up, and we'll be starting on the retail blocks later this year. Again, just a present image of what the courtyard building, the northern elevation of the courtyard building will look like. In terms of the courtyard building, these are some images of the recently completed show apartment, which is plot 219, just to give you a flavour of the internal finishes and also the views from the apartments, the fenestration, the fact that they're light area apartments. In addition to the internal space, the show apartment has a large external balcony veranda area. And again, this is just some of the images just to give you a taste of the private community space some apartments will benefit from. As I said, BDW2 planning permission was refused for it in December last year. We're now looking at how we resolve that. and considering options, but it may well be an application is submitted before June this year to look at previous reasons for refusal. So in terms of future phases, this phase, phase 3, which is split BDW3, which is this one on the right, BDW4 on the left. Design work is more advanced with BDW3 at present, but as you can see from the numbers here, this will provide a total of 519 dwellings, of which, as in common with the rest of the site, 40% will be affordable. This is just to give you a flavour of the work done so far on BDW3. This is the sort of illustrative master plan they're working towards, and it also shows some of the typologies we're looking at. So, for example, this main street along here, highlighted in red, that's the parkland area, which will have a sort of parkland setting and is key to the access into the rest of the site. This area in yellow, this is considered to be phase 4 or BDW 5 and 6, and this is what Ray will update you on. And in terms of last little thing from my presentation, communication, we do have a website which not only covers Darwin Green 1, but also covers Darwin Green 2 and 3. So if you have any questions, please go to darwingreencambridge.squarespace.com and we'll be able to answer any questions. I'm now going to stop sharing the screen and pass on to Ray.
Good evening. I hope you can all see the screen. Good. What I'm just obviously, thank you very much, Alan, for that. My name is Ray Houghton. I'm the head of planning for Barrett David Wilson Eastern Counties. As you see there, Eastern Counties is going to be responsible for delivering parcels 5 and 6. Our counterparts at BDW Cambridgeshire for the phases south, as Alan's just explained. Very briefly, given the few minutes we have left, I just want to explain that obviously the wider area, obviously we granted permission some time ago, 2013, for 1,593 dwellings. And obviously now we're in the process of bringing those forward through reserve matters and various parcels. Parcels here obviously relate to parcels 5 and 6. What is important, obviously, the outline established the parameters that needs to be adhered with. Land use, building heights, landscape framework, urban design, and of course access. I'm hoping you can see those very small thumbnails there, but essentially those are the building blocks, the guiding principles that we have to adhere with. Below this kind of yellow and orange sort of diagram shows very roughly sort of the character areas, where the darker colour there would be the principal route through, where you'd actually team up with the higher density, perhaps higher building heights as well, and then bleeding out towards the end, taking account of the low density on the eastern side and the expectation of what will come forward on the west as part of Darwin Green 2. Again, just a very brief proposal there in terms of where we are with the permissions. It is complicated when you hear about BDWs 2s and 3s, etc., but it is a pincer movement. Will be coming in from the north. Alan's just explained this section here on the eastern side, and of course the reference there to BDW2, which was refused in December. But we are concerned in the eastern counties with 5 and 6. We've had a pre-application meeting to date, which was very positive, the site visit, etc. A lot of information to work with, and we're working with key stakeholders such as yourselves also in order to help inform and evolve the scheme, so it becomes part of a connection to the wider community. And as part of that, the master plan, here we have some observations here about the importance here. There's obviously allotments, there's the key frontage here through to the central park and also the route through, but particularly reference also to how the site responds to its immediate neighbours and possible connections there, purely for pedestrian and cycle routes relating to Blackhall Road and Brownlow Road. And also there's a play area here, and perhaps we can sort of make better use of that.
Okay, Ray, just to confirm, you've got 5 more minutes.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Sharon. So there are opportunities here with the allotments, wayfinding, for example, But there's also importance here to understand the hierarchy of streets, so that there's a very clear understanding of where people are as they're guided through what is a large site, particularly in relation to the other phases, to better understand how people can find and navigate their way through to the other services and facilities that are available and have been delivered to date. So very much community-based, understanding how those connections beyond the site can be made for pedestrian and cycle, and understanding how these squares through here, we've discussed those with officers, as that they could be car-free areas where people could feel more comfortable and interrelate. I think certainly the last few months has taught us how we can, the benefit of community involvement in pulling together as a community. So the layout has to respond to that. This is a very early stage for us for these particular phases here at 5 and 6. So the detailed design is still being worked on in terms of the number of units. But we're looking at approximately 420, between 411 and 420 dwellings of various types, affordable housing, compliant, etc. But at the moment, it's understanding those concepts and how we can include yourselves to help evolve and inform this process rather than presenting a fait accompli today. So those connections, as I mentioned already, are particularly important. How it responds to heating and cooling of our dwellings, and particularly understanding how this very large site with the wider area has sort of formed its own character and responds to its immediate environment as well in terms of what's already established in the Histon area. That is my presentation. So thank you very much. Happy to answer any questions later.
Thank you very much for that. Julian, I think we can now go on to the questions and answers.
Yeah.
If you'd like to take us through those.
Thank you, Sharon. So I've had some questions posed to me prior to the meeting from some residents associations. So I'll go through these 4 questions first with you if I could. I think you touched on some of them beforehand, but I'll quickly reiterate what you probably already said. But first one is, what is the timescale for the submission of a revised planning application for BDW2 for Darwin Green 1? I think you indicated this summer.
Yeah, we're looking at resubmitting before the end of June. At the moment, we're looking at a few options. Obviously, there was 4 reasons for refusal that councillors gave, and we're looking at those reasons, how we address them, and obviously how that fits with our overall vision for the rest of the site, given that, for example, there's a large central park proposed. So one of the reasons for refusal for the BDW2 application was the perceived lack of open space, whilst there was lack of open space on the parcel as perceived by councillors. There is a large central park within walking distance of all the parcels in Darwin Green. There's also 3 allotment areas and various other small play areas and so on. So we're looking at the reasons for refusal, and we'll hope to resubmit something before the end of June.
Thank you. And after BDW2, exactly which area of Darwin Green 1 will be developed next?
So we're sort of working from BDW2, then it'll be BDW3, but given that the outline planning permission for Darwin Green expires at the end of this year, we're keen to move quite quickly with this, which is one of the reasons why it's a joint presentation from myself and Ray. We cover different regions, and between the 2 regions, we're looking to develop Darwin Green at a slightly quicker pace than would have been otherwise. So it'd be BDW3, and then at the same time from the Histon Road end, Ray and his colleagues will be looking to start on BDW5 and 6.
Just to provide some clarity there, Alan and Julian, and for the other people listening, is that again, it's important to collaborate, to work closely together. It doesn't matter which region we're talking about at Barrett's, people just know it as Barrett's, and that's the important thing people need to understand. So 5 and 6, phases 5 and 6, the areas I was referring to the northern side would be sort of come forward probably in tandem, I think, with 3 and certainly 2. We're looking to submit the application in June, the Reserve Matters application, and hopefully have a committee outcome resolution to approve by the end of October, in which case we would start works almost immediately, subject to the requisite permissions in place.
Thank you. The next one regarding the primary school. When will the primary school be built on DG1? Will it include the children's centre as originally required with the planning permission? If not, what community facility will be provided in compensation?
In terms of that, so the site is to be provided and built by Cambridge County Council. The site is still there, and as far as we're aware, the Children's Centre is still part of the development. We don't know the dates when the County Council will look to move that development forward. It was part of the Section 106 where there was financial obligations that we were required to pay towards Cambridge County Council for the school. They've been paid, and so it's up to the county now when they move forward with the school based on obviously demand for school places in the local area.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, from the written ones, when will the retail facilities be functioning on DG1?
Yeah, again, the retail facilities, so that there are two. There are sort of smaller retail units within the local centre. As part of the apartment blocks, they'll be on the ground floor. We've had some interest in them, but nothing's really developed any further. In terms of the supermarket, there's no interested operator at present, but certainly the retail blocks, they will be built, or at least work will commence on them this year. When we end up with shops, we don't know. We have had some interest, but nothing concrete at this stage.
Thank you very much. Okay, so let's move on to the Q&A sections that we have from tonight. Can you update us on the pedestrian and cycle access that links up with the Histon Road near the Lara Homes development on the old squash court site, north end of Central Park?
Yeah, if I've got the area correct, I believe we've referred to it as part of the BDW3 parcel. And if it's the area I'm thinking of, it's going to be retained as a pedestrian cycle link. But in order to ensure that it can't be widened in future for vehicular access, we're looking at how we can design that to basically prevent any future widening of that. So it's whether we use houses being close to that or some sort of gateway feature. We're currently having discussions with the architects how we address that area, but it will be retained as a cycle and pedestrian access through into the site, into the BDW3 parcel, and then into the wider Darwin Green development.
Okay, and do you know when there'll be a route through from Darwin Green to Windsor Road?
That is obviously dependent on the planning application, how quickly that progresses, and obviously how other reserve maps planning applications progress on the site. So that is largely dependent on the planning application dates. Because we don't have a reserve maps application submitted, we can't really work with concrete dates as yet, but it'll be in the next few years.
And would that be the same for the Central Park? Do we have a date for that opening, or is that pending?
The Central Park will be commenced after BDW3. Obviously, we don't want to be in a situation whereby we're building houses on BDW3, which is affecting the park that's already been established. So the park will be implemented after development commences on BDW3.
There's a comment here regarding Mayfield Primary School. We'd love to welcome Darwin Green children, but they'll need a route through to get to us, which I think is understood.
Yeah, and again, and one of the reasons both Ray and I are on this call, and as Ray said, we're keen to make sure that the parcels have full connectivity, cycle and pedestrian connectivity through to the wider area. We're conscious that provision that's already started in the early parcels has to continue, and as I say, that the link through to Windsor Road needs to be a priority for pedestrians and cyclists with no vehicular access. So we're mindful.
I think it's key, and it's part of that process, Julian. I think to reassure people listening that there is an existing public right of way also which needs to be maintained along our western boundary from Histon Road all the way through the site. But similarly, those people wanting to know when that connectivity will actually take place, it is part of our reserve matters proposal. It's intrinsic to the layout and the connections with with the details there. We do need to maintain, obviously, access relating to construction traffic to make sure there's no conflict there as well. So it's a health and safety issue as always, but as soon as those connections can be opened up, they will be opened up.
Thank you. Now here's one that's been going for quite a while, I believe. Cycle lanes, are there any plans to improve them? People are parking in the cycle lanes because there aren't any double yellow lines.
Not that I'm aware of. It's something I would have to look into with our engineers. I mean, with obviously the cycle lanes that have been put in already, there's various surface and materials that have been used to try and create a high quality development. And in terms of painting WL lines along there, not sure that we necessarily want to do that, but it's something I can speak to my colleagues about and discuss with the Highways Authority to see if it's something that can be done, or how these issues can be resolved in potentially another way.
I think also it's about from the outset designing these things so that there's a distinction wherever possible, and yes, there will be shared surfaces where you'll have car users with cyclists, but what we're also trying to achieve is a fairly significant proportion of these routes where there'll be dedicated routes for cyclists away from the cars, separated by good quality landscaping, for example. So those are, and I mentioned before about the car-free zone. So trying to understand how we can better tie in and make it more attractive and safer for cyclist users across the site.
Thank you. We have a question regarding a time plan for the walkway connection with Histon Road by the Lara development. I'm not sure that's particularly pertinent to Darwin Green 1 unless my planning colleagues have any information on that, which they don't seem to. No, it's the Lara development is not part of this forum, unfortunately, but we could get some information from that on the web page perhaps afterwards. Please update us on pedestrian cycle link to Girton, such as Wellbrook Way.
Couldn't at this stage. I couldn't update on that, unfortunately. There's nothing I can add. I don't know if Ray's aware of that at all.
I'm not, because it doesn't involve our parcels, but it's something part of DG1 will look into, but I'm not aware that there's any requirement there.
Apparently it links to Thornton Close, but it needs to go further to Wellbrook Way. So
I think probably the best thing to do then is for the next forum, our update and answer that particular question. So given we've got a forum again in a few months' time, we can provide that update for the next forum.
Thank you.
I think also, Alan, sorry Julian, but as part of the ongoing proposals, when we, certainly with BDW 5 and 6, have greater clarity ourselves as to the quantum, etc., of development and understanding those connections, one of the key documents that we'll be submitting is a movement and network plan. So you'll be able to see quite clearly the hierarchy also of the streets, but also non-car users and those connections beyond the site.
Thank you. And is there any plan to landscape, e.g. with grass, the supermarket plot until building commences?
There's not, for the simple reason we are looking to, as I say, find somebody who's interested in taking the supermarket on. The purpose and the point of Darwin Green is to create a community and provide the residents with services. So that's not just retail, it's also obviously the health centre, the school, the library and so on, and the community centre. So in terms of the supermarket, we are looking to bring that forward, and we are looking to find an operator who's interested. So we would hope the site doesn't remain vacant for too long, and so there's no plan at the moment to landscape it.
Thank you for that. Julian, if I could just ask that the next question is the last question that we answer live, because we need to move on to the next item. So if we could just do that question, and then we'll follow up the final question at the end with the follow-up questions on the website. Thank you.
Sure. We do have a question about Darwin Green 3, which we haven't touched on today. Perhaps we can do that at another forum. There is some information on the website about that. People would like to find it from previous forums, and also regarding the secondary school too. So perhaps we'll go to the last one, which says, will the junction with Histon Road near to King's Hedges be finished before October 2021?
Would you like me to answer that one, Alan? Yeah, I mean, certainly, obviously this is a highways responsibility, but the short answer to that is yes. We expect it to be operational before then.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to that developer team, and that was a very useful presentation, and thank you for the answers to the questions. So I'd now like to move us on to the Eddington update, and I'd like to ask Warren Forsyth and Rebecca Smith to start their presentation, and again you have 15 minutes. Thank you both.
Thank you and good afternoon. I'm just sharing my screen. If somebody would just kindly let me know when you can see it.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So I have less than 15 minutes because it's a shared presentation. So mine is just going to be an overview of where we are with Eddington, and I will clearly still be around to take questions at the end of the overall presentation to talk more about Eddington. Don't know why my screen is not moving on now. There we go, it is. Right, so this is an overview slide, just giving you the headline information of what is presently at Eddington, what is there and up and running. Those people that have been watching closely will see that the most significant piece of development that is brand new and coming online is the hotel. So more information about that. And private residents are starting to, well, are increasingly being occupied as part of the overall Eddington development, with 710 key worker housing units that have been occupied for some time now, as well as some retail in the market square. This gives you some idea of placemaking that we've been able to continue to do throughout the pandemic time. As you'll be aware, the whole placemaking agenda has been particularly hard hit by us being constrained with not being able to gather people in groups. We have nonetheless opened the Dolcedo patisserie during this period of time, and so they are operating their units off the market square, and that is proving to be very successful and very popular with the community. And it is still in its infancy in terms of a business. We have continued to have Food Park coming to site, and they operate a social distancing process and menu and booking system to keep people safe. And we were able to put on some Christmas festivities by actually walking around in the streets. Thank you to Vicky and other placemaking people who kindly made sure that that part of it was arranged. And we worked collaboratively in bringing some cheer to Eddington, even though we couldn't gather to celebrate Christmas. And of course, now with the longer days starting to come our way, we are seeing more and more people out enjoying the green space that we have across Eddington. So this slide just gives you largely what I've already told you. We have continued to keep the nursery open, all within government guidelines. The primary school has reopened in line with other primary schools, as you would imagine. And we have plans to start resuming public events in the future, again, all subject to government requirements and guidance. So we are working on those to see what we can bring forward in a safe way for people to integrate into and develop as part of that community in the later part of this year. I think it's also worth sharing with you that despite the turmoil in our world, we've been in a very fortunate position where demand for our key worker housing accommodation has been sustained throughout, and our occupancy is very high. And we have switched our processes, obviously, to work with very much remote process for people to move in and move out. And we've had to be incredibly flexible with people not being able to travel in or out of the country, and the arrangements around travel that have had an impact on the demand and occupation of key worker housing. That is not quite so the case, as you will well know, with undergraduate students, and you'll see that the undergraduate accommodation at Swells Court is currently at about 50% of occupation, and that is consistent with other undergraduate accommodation across the university and universities portfolios in the UK, with most of that undergraduate teaching being done by remote and distance learning. More news in other presentations about the hotel, but expected to be completed in the summer and autumn, thereabouts of this year. There's a brief synopsis of what the hotel will offer. I don't want to go into that in too much detail, but those of you that are going past will see that a lot of the scaffolding is down and it's starting to show its face. And I think it's a really exciting opportunity and an addition to the overall offering at Eddington that is coming our way. So as a total summary, if you like, this is where we were in 2013 with a fairly stripped back canvas when groundworks were the only activities on site. And our latest aerial photograph looks like that, where you can see the school. You can see, I don't know if you can see my pointer, but that's the school. The centre of Eddington, which is predominantly key worker housing. You can see the development of the private residential properties coming along with some pace, the western edge, and you can see, sports facilities that are now lying unused largely because of restrictions. But the development that has come to this stage at this point in time. And that was all I wanted to offer as an overview, and happy to take questions later on.
Thank you very much for that. So Julian, shall we see if we've got any questions?
There, I must unmute myself. I've got one question that was written to me today. There are a number of phase 1 elements which have still not been delivered, even as the university pushes on with phase 2. What has happened to lot M3, planning permission granted June 2017 and boarded up ever since, in brackets, with the boards blocking the pavement? And these contain the health centre and the senior living home.
Okay, so for example, lot M3 is part of phase 1. The university is not proceeding with phase 2. We are continuing to finish off phase 1 parcels, and there has been an adjustment to development timelines. There has been impact on the market. There's been impact on the type and ability to mobilize on construction. And so the private residential development has been adjusted to reflect where the market is at the moment. And so I think that there is going to be a slightly longer time period in getting to the phase 2 implementation, but phase 2 is not in action yet.
Thank you. And Warren, what are the plans for the university secondary school and where will it be located?
So there is no secondary school as part of this development.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps people are still mulling over their thoughts, but we have no more questions in the Q&A.
And just to clarify, the secondary school would be on Darwin Green 3, so that's where, so it's on the land in South Cambs. So that's the future development, and that secondary school would serve the wider Northwest Quadrant developments. So, as Julian says, we've got no more questions on Northwest Cambridge. So in that case, I'd like to move us on to the next item. So if I could ask Peter McEwen, Colin Brown and team.
Apologies for interrupting, Sharon. It was supposed to be a joint presentation.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. That's why the 15 minutes was split. So I've got colleagues Joe Cohen and Alan Penfield just to do an update on lots S1 and S2 at Eddington.
Sorry for that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. So we're presenting lots S1 and S2. Just hoping this screen's come up, presentations come up. There it is. So I'm Alan Penfold, I run Present Made, and Jo Cowan's here with me to present. She's our lead architect from Jo Cowan Architects. We're here to present on S1 and S2, which makes part of phase 1 of the Eddington development, and it is the transition between phase 1 and phase 2. So S1 is the smaller part of which is kind of indicated by housing, as you'll see further on the development, and S2 leads on to the Ridgeway, which is the orange route through on the Ridgeway indicated there. Just to touch on Present Made and who we are before Jo talks to you about the scheme, but Present Made is the UK's first purpose-built rental family housing brand. We own, operate and develop all of our own developments, and we are here for the long term. So we really aim on creating communities which we really want to harbour and deliver for the long term, and it's all for rental, focusing on a multi-generational product. We're saying family housing, but we know families come in all shapes and sizes in today's society. So we've got a broad mix of units to really meet the market demand of the local area, and we've done a lot of research to ensure that we've got kind of 1-bed apartments right through to housing. Community creation is really important to us. We believe that if we create an exciting community and settle into the wider Eddington community well, then people are going to enjoy living on our developments, and therefore they will stay with us for a longer term, and we'll have less kind of less new residents in longer term to create that longevity of tenure. And for the university, it's an option to try and really bring another tenure to the Eddington development as well, because we've got for sale housing, we've got key worker housing, and now we've got built specifically and bespoke designed for rent housing. The last thing that I'll just touch on is the professional management that we deliver. We're different to the kind of existing Landlord and Tenant Act. We want to scrap that and really start again. And we are part of a community. We are on site with our own staff. So every development that we put forward, and Present Made of Eddington is no different to that, will be professionally managed by on-site staff who really kind of are there to help and deliver your everyday need, and maintenance teams to fix deliveries and ensure that landscape is really kind of brought through and maintained and managed for the long term to create a sustainable development where living sustainable is second nature to our residents, and educating in that where we can. So passing across to Jo just to walk you through the scheme.
Thank you, Alan. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jo Cowan from Jo Cowan Architects, and it's been a great privilege, Warren, and seeing what's happening in Eddington to work on the site. As we explained, we have the S1 site and the S2 site, but we very much see them as one community of residents. And you know, we've looked forward to come in with an apartment and housing-led scheme that provides a range of accommodation from 1-bed to 3-bed apartments, and then 3- and 4-bedroom houses of different shapes and sizes. Just giving you an overview, this is the Ridgeway, which runs all the way through into Cambridge. We're very fortunate to be bounded on 2 sides, and that allows us to enhance the connectivity within Eddington, but also into Cambridge as a whole. We are bounded also by pocket parks, Swale, and the implemented neighbourhood park at Milne Gardens, as well as actually some of the pocket parks that are coming forward to the north. This is a part of the development which also sits in phase 1, but it is not under our control. Just to categorize really an overview of S1 and S2. S1 really, this is a landscape-led proposition, and we are looking at a way of creating home sets with livable streets, and that means green streets with shed surfacing and permeable planting, and then also looking at creating really a garden court which has community facilities in terms of pavilions, games court, which you'll see here, and then really just a fantastic landscape-led amenity strategy for the development. if I think about what our vision has been, you know, Alan hasn't had the time today to really explain how passionate President Maid are about putting people first and looking at community creation, not just within these two sites, but also within the wider Eddington, to complement the amazing work that's been done in the vernacular that's been. We're very focused on connectivity, sustainability, landscape and ecology, certainly in the way we've brought our SUDS program, but at the heart of that is well-being and wellness, and creating a sense of place through high quality design that's totally embedded in placemaking and built on actually what Eddington has done to date, and hopefully helps with this site as we transition into phase 2 going forward. As a quick overview of lots S1, pretty critical to us is to create an ecology buffer that wraps the entirety of the north and eastern sides of the site. And that's a 20-meter buffer that has attenuation ponds, that has SUDS, that has the permeability and allows wildlife to flourish. And very key to this has been key views, really from the avenue looking through to that. We have a green spine that sits at the heart of the development. And that's really set very clearly to create an edible landscape. We have a huge kitchen gardens program in promoting that intergenerational living and bringing people together across the site. We have a tertiary street that runs through the site, which deals with waste management and other services, and then really livable streets, which are there to serve homes and people. And we see streets as places that allow for those interactions, that community building, friendship, I think is what we would like to say. We have an ecology corridor to the back. We've employed rain gardens throughout the sites and really sort of taking that landscape to foster well-being. As a high-level overview of S2, again, it's landscape-led, but in a different way. We're looking at a games court that sits, which is sunken. This is a raised ground floor garden court. We have a series of pavilions that allow for co-working spaces and event spaces for ultimately the residents, as well as expressed extenuation, mounding, and a really significant tree planting program that I as an architect have not ever seen implemented by any of our clients before. Connectivity and the formality and the relationship with the Ridgeway, and then really looking at that garden court and the quality of architecture. We've looked at Cambridge and worked very hard to work within the vernacular of Eddington, but also provide something that's bespoke, that's considered, that addresses different characters across the site. And then again, sustainability through to SUDS and our interaction in our everyday lives from our homes with ultimately this amazing public space. Just giving you a snippet of some of the elevations. This would be an elevation that would be coming forward on the Ridgeway, which is being implemented and developed further by the university at the moment, and then really starting to look at some of the tertiary streets, the garden courts. We've done a lot of work looking at every different character, bay and facade, and how that language changes. And the reason for that is not just to promote different balconies and apertures, you know, to work within ultimately livable spaces and improving the quality of our internal space, but also our connection externally. And just flicking through some of the images for this to finish, the livable street strategies, the espalier planting on flank walls, how sort of smaller starter homes, you know, that enable young families to come forward and live within Eddington work. Again, another view which looks at actually some of the architecture along the avenue and how that balances with the implemented neighbourhood park. And you see then the S1 into the rear. A view of a signature building, which is key to the design codes. And then again, looking up into that garden court, and you can see that pavilion. Relationship of housing to apartments, considering a domestic scale in streets that sit within S2. And then again, that image of how we deal with buildings that have that much more formal relationship with the Ridgeway, and thinking about the masonry-led and expressive architecture around it. And then just two overview slides of how this will sit within Eddington from phase 1, the implemented Hill and Allison scheme, through to what's coming forward in the future. That's it. Thank you so much for listening to us.
Thank you, and sorry for missing you out earlier on. So
Don't
thank
worry.
you very much, Alan and Joe. It was really helpful. So now we're on to questions and answers, and if we could just keep it to 5 minutes of question and answers, Julian, please, because we just need to make up a little bit of time. Thank you.
Okay, so first question, the pathway between Greenwich House and Eddington is extremely dark. Are there going to be any improvements?
think that one might be for Warren.
I should probably take that one, yes. There aren't any plans as part of our development for upgrading or changing the pathway between Greenwich House and Northwest Cambridge. But that, you know, I'll take away the comment and speak to the estates team.
Thank you. There's a follow-up to the Senior Care and Health Centre question.
Oh yes, indeed. So senior care hasn't yet been hasn't yet started. There is still the intention to get the senior care development undertaken as part of phase 1, so that is still progressing, but we don't have a design or a proposal yet to share with you on that. With regard to the health centre, we continue to be in dialogue with the NHS. I think the NHS's focus is elsewhere right now, and they seem to be absorbed in dealing with national pandemic, so haven't had much progress in getting the health centre positioned and ready to give you an update on at Eddington.
I can say, Julian, that officers have been seeking to organise a meeting with the NHS to discuss the health facilities both at Eddington and of course the one at Darwin Green also, so that is something we are trying to move forward.
Thank you. And the last one that we have on the Q&A, any updates on the phase 2 infrastructure planning application?
So the university hasn't taken a decision yet on bringing that planning application forward. And when the university has taken that decision, we will certainly be sharing that information with you.
Thanks very much, Warren. That's all we have.
So thank you very much to the Eddington team for those presentations. Hope everyone found them interesting.
Thank you.
So I'd now like to move us on to the NIAB headquarters item. So I'd like to invite Peter McEwen, Colin Brown and the team from Carter Jonas to start their presentation. And again, you have 15 minutes.
Sharon, thanks very much. It's Colin here, Colin Brown. I'm going to lead off if I can. So yeah, as I say, I'm Colin Brown. I'm a partner at Carter Jonas. We're the planning consultants on the project on the NIAB site. Peter McEwen is with me. He may also answer some questions later, but the main presentation will be given in a moment by Eric Holding, who's the director of JTP Architects. Just by way of context, this site, which Eric will take you through, is actually part, other than the 1920s building many of you will recognise on Huntingdon Road, the rest of the site is part of the overall housing allocation, which forms part of Darwin Green. So it is designated for housing in the local plan. And I really just wanted to say, this has been quite a long journey to get to this point. We've been going at this probably for about a couple of years now. We've had about 5 pre-application meetings. We've presented to the design quality panel at the County Council on a couple of occasions, very positively, I would say. There's been pretty extensive public consultation with immediate neighbours, and obviously we're very pleased to be at the forum meeting this evening to expose the scheme a bit further. We've done a number of presentations to local councillors and then also to other interest groups such as CamCycle and Cambridge Past, Present and Future. And much more recently, we've also sort of moved away from the sort of larger project group meetings with officers and had a number of very focused, very dedicated meetings with specialist officers dealing with a whole range of topics such as highways, landscaping, sustainability, and so on and so forth. So a really positive process. As I say, we're pleased to be here tonight. We'll answer any questions you have at the end, but for now, Eric, over to you for the presentation.
Thanks very much indeed, Colin. I'll just share my screen now, if people can see that. Is that okay? Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. Obviously, this is a very kind of complex scheme. It's the first time people might have seen this.
I can't see it, so I don't know if everyone else has.
No,
everyone else can see it. I can't see it.
No, there's a little watch face appeared, Eric, as if it's loading.
Okay.
That's it.
Can you see? I'll leave it like that then. Okay, well, thanks very much indeed for your time, everyone, tonight. This is obviously quite a complex scheme. There's a lot going on within it. We've got a short time to present. I'm going to go through quite a lot of slides very quickly, but of course we can come back when people have got questions and talk about any of it more specifically. Obviously, people probably know where the site is on Huntingdon Road in northwest Cambridge, and what's really interesting about this site is it sits between the Darwin Green project and Eddington projects, which we've heard from tonight. So it's really been interesting to hear about that context. As you'll know, there's a huge amount of residential development coming forward in these areas, predominantly private, affordable and key worker housing, although as we heard from President Mayfield, there is some rental tenure coming forward, and that's also what this site is looking at providing in this area, so that there's a whole mix of housing options for people there. It's a very interesting area, emerging quite quickly. There's lots of amenities in the local area, both existing and emerging, and we will be looking to add to that for our site and for surrounding people. And what's also interesting for us on this project is just that it's a very sustainable location in terms of work. There's around 37,000 employees within a 15-minute cycle ride. So this, and as well as public transport, obviously along Huntingdon Road. So great place to create some residential communities. This is what the scheme's proposing. It's going to mixed-use development. It has build-to-rent accommodation, which I'll speak more about in a second, and a part hotel. And also it will deliver a series of facilities there, including a cycle hub and cafe, a microbrewery, there'll be some co-working space. There's also a swimming pool and gym, and all of these will be available to local people as well as those that are going to live in the new homes on the site. Greatly improved public realm, really nice new public space. We're retaining the existing building of local interest on the site frontage. We'll be demolishing the 1960s extension to the rear end of the building. So just in terms of build to rent, these are taken out of Cambridge's own documents. We know that there's a housing crisis really in Cambridge. It's difficult in terms of affordability. People are squeezed out in terms of what they can afford. And as a consequence, private rental sector now in the city is around about half of all accommodation. It's been identified that these are all in short-term landlords and tenancies, so there's a lack of security, and also that about 80% of those are not even meeting health and safety. It's been identified that build to rent is one of the answers to this. It's a kind of professional environment, bringing people together into a managed environment where they'll have longer tenancies, more security, better quality accommodation, and lots of amenities and opportunities to build a sense of community within a rental home. And build to rent, of course, is kind of all about hospitality, really. It's about home as a service in some ways. It's about nurturing community. The more people feel at home there, the longer that they'll live, the more friends they have. So it's about events and programming to bring people together. The client for this project will be building and managing this in the long term. Vertex have already own, manage and operate within the local area. Very high standard of management, and to them business success is all about this as a long-term investment. It has to be 100% occupied, so that means it must be the most attractive rental proposition in the city. They're always selling, so what this means as a kind of neighborhood is that it'll be very high design quality, very attractive, lots of thoughts about long-term sustainability, events and amenities for people to kind of come together, and expert management. So this is the scheme itself. It's surrounded by several different contexts, House Place and Nabs, obviously a heritage context. Then we've got the Lawrence Weaver Road, which is kind of emerged now as the entrance into Darwin Green, and then the backs of properties onto Darwin Green as well. And we've looked at each of those in kind of different ways. We're responding to Howes Place with a sort of symmetrical composition to kind of complete that environment, pushing buildings well back, and responding to NIAB and those buildings with kind of brick approaches, characters, string courses, pitch roofs to kind of really blend in with that environment there and be sensitive. We've got this new space across the middle that connects across to Lawrence Weaver Road with new facilities and amenities on that road. This gives you an idea of what this looks like. Here's the NIAB building. You can see how we're responding to it in terms of pitch roofs and dormers. And then up here, we begin to see the public space, which looks like this. This is the new open public space. This is a cycle cafe hub on the corner where you'll be able to buy bikes, rent bikes, repair bikes. This is the apart hotel entrance. There's co-working space. This is the build to rent concierge, and down in the square is the microbrewery. So this is NIAB. This is the apart hotel. This is the new public space. There's a series of 2 C-shaped blocks along Lawrence Weaver Road with courtyards and a mews down the back. We thought very carefully about the interrelationship with Darwin Green houses, which are quite close to the boundaries, 6 metres. This is then 19.5 metres, so we don't overshadow. All the servicing will come from Lawrence Weaver Road in the position everything's in now. Cars will be taken straight down into the basement. We're providing car parking that's policy compliant. All the bike parking for build to rent is at ground floor level and compliant with all of the policies. And there'll be refuse collection along here, occasional deliveries and collections for the apart hotel just off Howes Place. This is an idea of kind of what the courtyard gardens will look like along Lawrence Weaver Road. And you can see from this is the build to rent ground floor accommodation, the apart hotel, cycle cafe, co-working, the build to rent concierge and the microbrewery around this space, pushed away from Howes Place down towards Lawrence Weaver Road. So this is the build to rent accommodation, it's the apart hotel, around about 300 apartments in the build to rent, mixture of studios 1s and 2s, and around about 200 apart hotel apartments, similar kind of mix of studios 1s and 2 beds. In terms of the landscape, we're looking to take the bleached trees down Lawrence Weaver Road and keep the idea of the kind of heritage landscape going. Got a new green heart built around suds here and down here. The residential courtyards are mews, and then a kind of landscape kept around NIAB that's probably slanted towards food production with a nod towards history there. This is the wetlands area. I'll just go back here. That's this area here with a kind of courtyard space. Sorry, you'll be able to walk down through that. We'll show you more about that in a second. And then a biodiverse water garden in the main public space on Howes Green. In terms of sustainability, we don't have much time to talk about this, but obviously the local plan's heading towards net carbon zero. We are working very hard with this. So, for example, through very water sensitive design, integrated with the landscape, reducing peak flows, pollution control, podium drainage. We're also working very hard on energy, the rooftops being used for energy generation and biodiversity. And obviously the buildings themselves are very energy efficient. So in summary, we're a landscape-led master plan with energy efficient buildings. We've tried to respond to the architectural character of Howes Place and NIAB with some sensitive architectures allowing breathing space around the existing buildings. A diverse community through different house types, guaranteed facilities. They will definitely be coming because they're linked into the apart hotel and build to rent business plans. So that's for both the residents, the wider community. Obviously great connections with cycle and public transport, ongoing stewardship, 24-hour day concierges, really key node. All of our ground floor is kind of publicly, is sort of a landscape and publicly accessible. All of the cars in the basement and series of kind of distinct set pieces and framework of open spaces that allow people to move through the site. So that is the brief overview, and I'd just like to show you very quickly a very short film that will show you what that looks like. This starts from the corner where the NIAB building is, and we'll just go down Lawrence Weaver Road. So, so this is the that was the existing building. Just going to turn now and look down the gap. We're going to create a new view down the back of NIAB after we've demolished the 1960s building. This is the apart hotel with an architecture responding to the NIAB building. We're moving down now towards the new public space. The green building on the corner is the cycle cafe and hub. The concierge on this side for build to rent. Further down is the microbrewery that we'll come back to. Then these are the pavilion buildings. This is the only vehicle access into the site, where we'll be able to go into the basement and you will have your Amazon deliveries there. These are now the build to rent apartment blocks, and we are coming now to the water garden between those, and this will take us down. This will be publicly accessible. So this is where we're trying to bring together sustainability with the landscape and create a very biodiverse garden that's linked into the SUD system that'll be open to people to come and enjoy. We're now moving into the Muse. This will be about people on bikes and getting to their homes. You can see here one of the courtyard spaces with children's play off the Muse courtyard, very safe environment. You can see along here also bike parking. This will be for visitors. There are other places indoors. This is the area around the back with disabled parking and where Amazon deliveries will be made right next to the concierge so that it can be managed. And then this is the link through back into the new public open space for the whole community. Across, you can see the microbrewery. There'll be places to sit outside in front of here. There's the apart hotel concierge down at this end. This is the biodiverse water garden. And then we'll just finish here looking back across towards the cycle hub and cafe. And I'll stop there.
Thank you very much for that. Does that conclude your overall presentation? Thank you. So I don't think we've got any questions in the question and answer box yet. So if there's anyone out there who wants to ask some questions to follow up on this presentation, then this is your opportunity. No, Julian, we didn't have any questions in advance in relation to this item.
We didn't, Sharon. No, that's right. So Colin and Eric, you've stunned them into silence. Here's a couple. Here we go. How many car parking spaces will be provided per residential plot? What's the ratio?
We are obviously this hasn't been put in yet for planning, but this will be going in with a policy compliant ratio, and they'll be all underground, and we'll also be in the basement. We'll also be providing things like electric charging points. We'll also be compliant around those disabled spaces, and you'll have noticed that they are the only ones that are up at ground level. Everything else will be managed below ground.
Thank you. And in terms of your application and build out, what are the timeframes that we're looking at?
I mean, I'll take the first one. In terms of the application itself, we're probably about 3 months away from a submission of that at the present time. And obviously subject to, Sharon and her colleagues and obviously the timelines for determination. We'd obviously be hoping to get an approval sometime in the summer. And then, on to starting development as soon as possible thereafter. You may have noticed that the 1920s conversion is already underway. So we'd obviously quite like to be moving from that straight on to, the remainder of the development.
Oh, just to come back also on the car parking question. The Build to Rent and Part Hotel will also be a part of a car club, and those car club spaces will also be in the basement area.
Thank you. And will it be possible for the public to walk from Lawrence Weaver Road through to House Close and out onto Huntington Road, i.e. a shortcut from Darwin Green into town on foot?
Yes, at the moment that is what's planned. Just generally, there's a belief that we should be increasing as much connectivity as we can through urban design, and so that is what people will be able to do. In terms of the existing residents down at that end, we've very purposely pushed all garden space down towards House Place and moved all of the facilities like the cycle cafe onto Lawrence Weaver Road, so that the main activity will be to the west of the site.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all the questions we have at present. Sharon.
Thank you for that. So that was a very interesting presentation. I'd now like to move us on then to the community update, and so hand over to Lisa Pollitt, please.
Thank you, Sharon, and hello everybody. So I'm a Community Development Officer for Cambridge City Council, working in Northwest Cambridge. Can everybody see my presentation okay?
Yes.
Yep. So I'm going to give an update. Obviously, business hasn't been as usual over the last year, and so I'm going to give an update as to what we've been doing. So let me just make sure that moves. So in terms of our community development work, what we've been doing is working across the city, which includes obviously Northwest Cambridge, setting up an isolation support hub, advising and signposting people, particularly vulnerable residents, but really we've been helping a real mixture of residents across the city, really helping people with every type of possible situation that they're facing and trying to get them the support that they need. We've also been supporting the mutual aid group. So for Northwest Cambridge, that's the Castle Mutual Aid Group, which I'll talk to you about in a minute. And we've also been giving out food bank and fuel vouchers to residents in Northwest Cambridge. We did manage to get out and do some community work. So at Christmas, we took out these musical bins and lights and gave out information, and did lots of singing in Darwin Green and in Eddington. We also got Christmas hampers out to 300 families in need, and developed a system of getting meals out, Christmas meals out to vulnerable and elderly residents, some of whom were in Northwest Cambridge. So Castle COVID Support Association, there may be people on the event tonight who are part of this association. I'm just feeding back what they've been doing. Been amazing. They've got volunteers from across the ward. They've been coming to meetings. We were having them weekly and then every couple of weeks. And what they offer is anybody in Northwest Cambridge or in the ward of Castle, any kind of support really that they may need in terms of managing their life at the moment. There's a helpline, and they've been doing things such as getting medical prescriptions, dog walking, posting letters for people, getting food, and really just being there to support each other. And it's been pretty amazing work that they've been doing. And in Eddington, the Eddington Residents Association, luckily the timing was great. They were formed and sort of came together just before we went into the very first lockdown, and they've been amazing, keeping in touch with all the Eddington residents. They've been part of the Castle COVID Support mutual aid group as well. They had a Christmas party online, and they had teddy in the windows for families, because there's a lot of families with young children, so that's a really lovely thing they were doing. They have like a social group called Eddington Open Door, which they're hoping to restart at some point. Again, it'll all depend on, you know, government guidance. And the film club that they started at Storiesfield Centre as well, hoping to open that up, and that will be open to residents in Darwin Green and the whole of North West Cambridge. They're also planning to offer people the opportunity to open up, go and get a coffee together, meet up with each other. And Eddington Eats, which was a sort of like a large dinner party that took place at Storiesfield Centre, run by residents cooking for each other. That's hoping to start up again as soon as it's safe to do so. In terms of sports development, our team at the City Council were running some outdoor boot camps last summer and football matches, and also an outdoor dance festival. They're looking to come back as soon as it's possible with football again, cricket, dance, boot camps, Eddington runners, and hopefully a mum and buggy walk, starting to set up these walks. And also the park run hopefully is going to be coming. So that'll be a 5K park run every Saturday. Again, at the moment, no definite time for that, but should be later this year. Storiesfield Centre, so obviously it has been closed. They're planning to reopen sort of in different recovery steps. So from the 12th of April, they may be doing some very limited activities in line with government guidance, and it'll be really around children's activities that are allowed to happen. And then, as Warren talked about, they're looking at doing some outdoor low-key events in the summer, comedy, folk, possibly outdoor cinema, that sort of thing. So the best thing to do is to have a look at the website and get in touch via the website if you would like to be involved in that in any way. And just to finish off, quite a lot of you know already that we have this community chest fund, but some of you might not. So this really is for any residents who live in North West Cambridge who would like to set up an activity or a group that brings the community together. So we're talking about the existing community and the new communities that are here. We've had lots of projects happen so far. Eddie's Cafe got set up, which is a free cafe that was running, and they've been meeting, continuing to meet online with residents during lockdowns. We've had toy swaps, we've had parent and toddler groups, like the dinner club I mentioned, lots of different cultural celebrations and lots more. So best email is the eddington@cambridge.gov.uk at the moment, and just check all of our websites, the City Council website and Storiesfield website for all the updates. So I think that's it from me. Any questions?
We do have a couple of questions. Lisa, do you know the route of the park run yet?
I don't know that. I wonder if Warren does. I know that he might have been talking to Joe about that. Do you know the route, Warren?
No, I don't know the route yet. We haven't fixed the route just yet. It's not that advanced yet.
No. Sorry, everyone. It's not there yet.
And a follow-up, will you, Lisa and Vicky both be doing the park run?
Well, Vicky? Yeah,
Oh.
I've been doing Couch to 5K, so hopefully by the time I've got to the 5K, it'll be time for the park run.
Very good. Sorry, that was just me being mischievous. Just to say also, somebody says that Eddie's Community Cafe is also hoping to restart in person as soon as possible. And who is the contact for public art in North West Cambridge, specifically Darwin Green? Will there community activities around this?
Vicky, can you answer that question?
I'm not sure on the public art one, but I can take that question away and come back via the website.
Okay, thank you for that. That's all the questions we have at the moment, unless I talk quite slowly and other people might type in, but that would seem to be it, Sharon.
Okay, so thank you for that. So that brings us to the end of this forum meeting. We'll provide the details for contacts to the council's website on the screen shortly. But I'd just like to take this opportunity to say thank you very much to the various presenters and everyone who's attended. We hope you found this session informative and interesting, and that the recording for the meeting and details of future meeting dates can be found on the council's web pages. The next meeting of this forum is likely to be in June, July time, so that will be confirmed on the council's webpage. And meanwhile, I'd just like to wish everyone a relaxing evening, and please keep well. Thank you. That closes this meeting.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'm going to stop recording now.